Welcome to Talking to Teachers, or for short, T-Cubed. I'm Tanish Rastogi alongside Joshua Zeisloft. In this podcast, we will introduce you to different teachers and hopefully get to know them better as people on the way. We believe that behind every great teacher is an even greater individual.
Skokin, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
How are you?
I mean, it's Friday afternoon. I'm doing pretty good right now, even though we're getting ready for AP exams and Keystone exams.
AP testing.
Yes.
Yeah, we're towards the end here now.
Yeah.
It's getting there.
It came a lot faster than it ever has for me.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But I think the two of you probably have enjoyed your senior year.
Oh, yeah.
From a social perspective.
Yeah.
I think you've made some decisions along the way that are important. I think a lot of kids get wrapped up in the process of going to college as something laborious and very serious and very grave. I think that's a serious problem.
Yeah. How should it be looked at then? Should it just be looked at as a pathway to figure out who you are or a guide to figuring out your future?
I mean, you're talking to a woman who changed directions after the degree was earned. I think part of the problem that I have with all of this is we're so focused on scores that we're not recognizing that and I've said this forever, you can't quantify the qualifiable. So everyone's focused on what's my grade point, what's my ACT, what's my SAT, what's this, how much money. I mean, it all comes down to numbers, but as human beings, we're not numbers.
Yeah.
I think the problem that I have with it is I just recently read The Tattooist of Auschwitz. It's a book, and it's about this man, it's a true story, about this man who his job was to tattoo all the prisoners who came into the concentration camp. I thought a lot about, yes, we don't rank you per se, but we do a lot of focusing on numbers, and sometimes those numbers don't necessarily mean a whole heck of a lot. I think that you should enjoy it. I think you should enjoy this process. This, to me, would be going on an ultimate scavenger hunt. What school fits me? What do I like about these places? And yes, you have to do fairly well to have your pick of the litter. I read an article recently because Andrew's in 8th grade. So we talk about this kind of stuff, where the better your grade point average, it gives you the percentage of probability that you would get into a certain percentage of schools. And so, yes, you have to do fairly well, regardless of what type of classes you're taking. But I also think that we need to be realistic about goals. So that's my 2 cents. I think not everyone's going to Harvard.
Right.
But that doesn't mean where you go isn't where you should be.
Yeah, Senora Wolf came in last time, and one thing she said really stuck with me, that this is a world of comparisons. So, the fact that when you go to college, and a lot of kids are going to be thinking about, when they make that decision, the ranking, right? They want to know, how they stack up to others. And I don't know now in a world of social media how much you can really detach yourself from that process. I feel like back in the day, you might have been able to really isolate and make a decision that was best for yourself. But now, as we get more and more into a technological world, it's going to be much, much harder to make that decision solely based on what's good for yourself.
I agree with you. However, I look at some things, and something sticks with me so definitively. The boy graduated probably 5 years ago. But his father came in to see me for we were having a conference, and we were having a conversation, and he was, at that time, the co-CEO of BNY Mellon. So we talked a little bit, and he ended up saying, okay, well, I went to Harvard, I played football, but the guy that sits next to me and makes all the decisions went to Indiana University of Pennsylvania. It's interesting, too, because somewhere along the way we decided that experience wasn't necessarily important. It was a pedigree, but I think the pendulum is definitely shifting, because I spoke to one of my former students. She was in my first class, my first year of teaching. So this would have been 2001. Her daughter and my daughter are on the same softball team. It's kind of crazy.
Wow.
I love it.
Wow.
Love it. It's very cool. And we were having a conversation, and she said, my husband did not go to college. He went to a trade school. He's worked very hard to get where he is, and he's killing it. But you don't hear those stories. I mean, I'm not saying kids don't need to go to college. You want to go to college, you want to get a university, or you want to get a degree. I think you should do those things. But I also think that kids need to know all the options. Because, I mean, let's be honest, this is all big business too. I mean, between testing and the relationship between the universities and the conglomerate, if you will, that is a monopoly. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not a conspiracy theorist totally, but I just, you need a degree if you need a degree.
Yeah.
But I can tell you right now, trying to get a plumber and electrician, it's not easy stuff. I think you should find that channel that you look and you think, okay, this is something I want to look at, even though it's maybe not what your parents want for you. That's hard. It's hard to do. Or what you think the community or society wants of you.
I think it's hard to figure out what you want when you live under the cloud of maybe what your parents think or what society as a whole thinks of what you want to do.
Oh, I was there.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, my parent, my mother is definitely a science-based lady, and I went to school for science, and I came home one Thanksgiving, and I tell all my kids this story and said, this is not my jam. I don't want to do this. And she, what are you talking about? I don't want to be in the science field. I need to be around people. My father told me the day that I graduated from high school, I'll never forget it. I was getting ready for commencement, and he said to me, Tiffany, you should really be a teacher. And I laughed in his face. I said, that's ridiculous. He said, no. He said, I see it. And I said, well, and so I went off and did what I thought I was supposed to do. Because I knew, but I didn't. And here we are, 19 years later.
I feel like that's more common than people let on, because it seems like almost a bad thing. Like, oh, you didn't, you weren't able to finish what you started or whatever. But it's not that at all. Like, I feel like some people are almost embarrassed to talk about those kind of things.
Not me.
Yeah, but that's because that's it's what you want to do. When you find what you want to do.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there have been times. My second year teaching here, I was very sick. I was very sick, and there was never a day when I didn't want to come to work. I think you know, and when you find the right fit, you know it. Yes, you trip up a little bit midstream. That just happens because you're thinking, oh, I want to do things differently, or you're trying to reinvent yourself, because I think that's what we do periodically anyway. I mean, think about how you've changed in 4 years being here. I would say you're probably more objective than you were when you walked in as a 14-year-old. I mean, and that's what happens. You gain so much perspective and wisdom as you get older and look back and say, I can't even imagine being in a different position than I am now, or always trying to self-improve or reassess. I just think that's part of who we are intellectually and intuitively. That's just who we are.
Yeah, you're right. My dad was going through old photos, and he's making, books like from Shutterfly of each year. So the one he just made was 2014, and we got that like 2 days ago. And I was looking through the book, and I just couldn't do it, because I looked at myself physically, and then I was like, that's not me anymore. Mm-hmm. But then I also looked at myself like who I was as a person. And I was like, I'm just so far away from that version of myself. It's just I couldn't even look through the book. I just flashed through it.
But I have to tell you, you need to look at the book, because looking back and seeing where you were, I'm a firm believer that progress is part of your process. And so if you don't have the progress and you can't physically or mentally recognize it, it's hard to look and say, well, I've come this far, because we look at everything as a sprint, and it's not. It'll always be a marathon. I think that you owe it to yourself to look back and say, because it's easy to be self-deprecating. It's easy to look back and say, oh my goodness, I don't even recognize. But at the same point, we should be relishing in the things that we are doing better, stronger, faster, all of those things. Because if you don't know where you've been, how do you know where you're headed?
Yeah. That's like the idea of history, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to learn from what happened in the past so you can make a better future.
Or you repeat it until you decide that you don't want to repeat it anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, repetition is just part of who we are as well. We compartmentalize so much. We put ourselves in categories. We put people and things, and I mean, that's who we are mentally. I think that you can't escape that. And so we're bound to make the same mistakes. You can't say, I'll never make that mistake. But there will be a point when you will look back and go, I will never make this mistake again.
Right.
And there's something to be said for that. I mean, that's just my 2 cents worth.
Yeah.
It's more than 2 cents.
So would you say that like experience is what is more important in some or all cases for, going out into the world? Like, do you think that, I don't know, someone who wants to be an English teacher, say, do you think that them, shadowing an English teacher or doing some kind of like teaching younger students, something along those lines, would be more useful than going to college for an English major?
You need both of those things.
Both.
I think when you deal with content area only kind of stuff, that you can be as book smart and practicum smart as well. But I think when you deal with people, and I think I'm very misunderstood. I come from a place of, I know you can do it. I believe in you. I'm not Mrs. Gerhardt. I mean, bless her soul. She's warm and fuzzy. She's all of those things. I'm like, let's go. And I think that comes from a place where I coached before I even got into education. So I coached basketball. I was a varsity basketball coach for several years. And I think it's part of how I grew up, too. My mother is an intense woman. And I didn't always understand her. Like, back off a little bit. But at the end of the day, had she not been the way that she was, I would probably be drastically different. But I think that in order to deal with people, you have to deal with people. Having a relationship and being able to communicate and being able to understand body language. I mean, with a teenager, it's super important. I showed my AP classes the other day. I don't know if you've ever watched any of Trey Kennedy's videos. He's a comic. And he does these middle school impersonations of middle schoolers. And so, because that's more definitive than maybe perhaps what's going through a high schooler's mind sitting in a class, right? They've got the, and you have to watch it because it's just too funny. And if you don't understand when a kid comes in and you can see it on his face, to me, I couldn't live like that. But I also think I have some emotional intelligence. So if I see it, I don't necessarily hit it head on, like, what the hell's the problem here? But I'll say, here's a Post-it note, I'll slide it over, hey, what's going on? And I think that people appreciate that too, but I think that people misunderstand who I am. I think they think it's always coming at you. I'm very blunt and to the point and honest because for me that works best. Other people are able to finesse with feelings and I'm not. So, but I think that that's what makes your educational experience probably richer. I mean, if we were all cookie cutouts, that would be difficult. And I always laugh because in 2014, I was the commencement speaker. And the affinity that I have for those kids is far-reaching. I still talk to a lot of them. But the very next year, it was Mrs. Ulf. While we are very, very good friends and we have very similar philosophies, we are different in our delivery. I think that you have to, in order to deal, and I mean deal in a good way, in order to deal with people, you have to deal with people. Yeah. So I think you need both. I also think when you're an educator, you need to be an expert of the content. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I went to Spain with Senora Ulf, and obviously I don't speak Spanish. I took French. But she's a master. And I feel as if I'm a master in my content. I mean, do we sometimes not know? Sure. I mean, we're humans. But I think that it has to be a sound marriage of understanding people emotionally and being able to connect with them as well as knowing your content area. Because if one of those things are lacking, I would think it would be very much a struggle.
I mean, both ways are equally as effective. Like you were saying, like it does make it different. It makes a richer learning experience. Like having teachers that are laid back and having ones that are strict doesn't mean one's good, one's bad. I think I've learned an equal amount from both kinds of teachers and have been, just as good at learning the content and understanding with both kinds of teachers. And I think it's really about, like you were saying, the meshing of the content with the way you're teaching it. So like if you're going at a slow pace, I guess, with like a strict formatting, it might be a little bit different than going, faster with that because it kind of meshes differently, if you know what I'm saying. Like you can't take a strict teacher and give them whatever a more laid back teacher is going to be telling their students because it just wouldn't work. That's why I think that teachers should be writing their own curriculums and stuff like that because they know what needs to be taught and how it needs to get across to the students because, ultimately they're the ones doing it in the classroom. So I think they know best.
I also think that people don't recognize, I'm always interested because there are two camps, I think, and then there are a bunch of people in the middle. There are people who believe that teachers are invaluable. And then on the other side of that dichotomy, you have people who think anyone can teach. And then you have some people who are in the middle because they're just not sure, they don't care. But it's always interesting to have those types of conversations because teaching, I think, is an art form. You have to be on. I'm not a lecturer because I firmly believe that there has to be some level of self-discovery through language. Whereas if you're looking at a world language, they need to teach you the basics so that you can start to apply them and you can formulate and you can move forward. Me, I'm looking like you have a lot of these abilities already, but you may not have found your voice. You may not understand that this is style. And for me to prescribe style to you means that you're always writing for me.
Yeah.
And that's something I think a lot of people don't understand that about me because as you move up in your language agility and mobility, for instance, we teach grammar in the middle school, and I think it's good for you to know the basics, but you don't really totally understand grammar until you're up here. And that's because, people will say to me, well, my daughter speaks English. She does. But that doesn't mean she understands the intricacies. And so I think that's what drives people crazy. Because if I give you a physics problem or a math problem, you're like, got this, here's the formula, here we go. But if you start to talk theoretical math, there's a little bit of a difference there, right? That's more on the edge of what we're kind of doing. What I do, I look at it from the perspective of you will never be able to find your voice if I'm telling you what your voice is.
It's antithetical.
It's completely antithetical.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people don't understand, well, can you just tell? Yeah, I can tell you what you need to do better. We can have these conversations. But at the same time, if I tell you exactly how to write, when to write it, where to put it in the paragraph, you don't even ever really understand what it means to revise something then.
Furthermore, you're not going to develop an eye to do it in the future independently without a teacher.
Correct.
You're not taking home the skills that you need to be taking home.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And so for years and years and years, I think people misunderstood what my educational philosophy, because at the same time too, you have to take the wheel. It's been teaching AP is fantastic. I love it. As it changes and morphs, I have to change and morph, which is also a beautiful thing. It's ever changing, and I think that people don't understand that either. I think, and I'm not knocking, but math concepts really haven't changed much. But language and what's presented to you from a language perspective changes every second of every day.
It's an interesting way to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
I think most people will look at it the other way.
Of course they would.
Even I think I would look at that the other way, but that's a interesting point to make because That's true, because there's so much you can do with English. Like you were saying, it's like theoretical English,
Yeah.
language, and yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's not static.
Right.
Well, when you get your degrees and you go into the workforce, no one is going to say, you know what, I need a report from you. Like, both engineering?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. They're not going to tell you what to write.
Yeah.
You have to write it. So, and I think that's the benefit and the downfall of language, because for so many years you need to write it this way. Yeah, you need to be able to write it from an analytical standpoint. There are so many levels and layers to language and communication. I don't think that it's necessarily thought of in that perspective.
Definitely.
I think, most people don't care to see that there is depth there. They misunderstand it in that way. Yeah.
I mean, the other interesting thing that I was actually talking to Tash about this yesterday is, kids like to like double up on like maths and sciences and stuff, so they can
Right.
like, get stuff done and like basically do all of this math course or all the science courses by the time they leave the high school. But like you don't really hear about that kind of stuff with like Englishes, and I know it's that you have 9th grade English, 10th grade English, but I'm sure there's more stuff you can do with that, and people don't seem to want to do that. Like a lot of the kids, like from past years and stuff, like my brother for example, could have graduated his junior year, but he needed another English class, and like it's just interesting that people don't want to do that kind of thing. They don't want to push that English stuff.
So here's what I can tell you, and I've been thinking about this for a while. No one likes to clean the house, okay?
Yeah.
No one, when you hear get your chores done, you want to know why? It's not because you care about the cleaning. Like, it's not because the cleaning stinks. It might. I think we're looking at it the wrong way. We look at it from the perspective of, this is a chore, this is going to take so much time, I would rather be doing all of this, instead of looking at it like, I love the way this makes me feel when I've written something fantastic and been recognized for it. I love the fact that I was able to infuse some satire in a conversation I was having with someone. We don't look at the product, we look at the process as tedious and difficult and too gray. I think it's the mindset.
Right.
I remember someone saying to me, I think it was Chen Wang, he went to MIT. He said, Mrs. Kocan, I would do 1,000 math problems if you don't make me write this essay. And I said, but I don't care about the math problems. He was like, but this is hard. And I said, yes. And the other thing is, too, I want you to think about this. You both have written college admissions essays. You have to look at who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't really expect that.
A lot of introspection.
Yeah, definitely. It's always hard because, like, a lot of people, I remember end of junior year in your class, we started our Common App essay.
Right.
Like, you gave us the prompts for that year, and we started writing it in that class. And I think I spent more time trying to figure out what to write about than actually writing it. Like, that same one I took and made it my coalition application essay because it, like, basically fit one of the prompts, too. And that is, like, the essay that I'm most proud of, I'd say, because I was able to take time and look at myself, and I was able to, revise that multiple times over and over and over again and make it seem so I can get my inner thoughts onto paper. And I think it's really, really hard to do that because with, like you were saying, math and stuff, it's easy. It's just numbers, and you plug them into the equation, and you get something out, and you can see it there. But when you're having an internal, conversation almost with yourself, it's really hard to get that on a sheet of paper. And when you do it successfully and you can recognize that and other people read and say, wow, that was really good, or like, I really know where you're coming from. That's a really, really big payoff, I feel like. And that's where, people can realize they know what they're doing, and that's the end goal, is that you want to be able to express your thoughts through paper, I guess, which is not easy.
Yeah, it's not.
No.
Well, I also think that people don't understand that language isn't just language. Language is philosophy, psychology, anthropology, history. Like, language is more than just words. And so for you to be able to put down articulately how it's your interview, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's your interview. And if it's good, you will make an impression. If it's not, and it's mediocre, it's unfortunate. I'm not saying you're not going to get into school. It's just a matter of when you make an impact on someone reading, that can change what happens to you.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly. So I think sometimes we don't look at it from what is the product of what we say and what we write.
Yeah.
We just look at the process as being laborious and tedious and all of those things that are negative.
Why aren't more kids curious then? Why don't they enjoy learning? Why do they look at it as laborious and tedious? Like, that's the root of it. Or when did that happen?
I think somewhere around the beginning of adolescence, things change.
Yeah.
And as you move up and you take more classes and you're trying to balance it all, you step back and you think, I just don't have time for this. I cannot tell you how many times I speak English. Correct. You do. But I also would say the same thing for public speaking.
Yeah.
I really think more kids need to invest in a good opportunity. Because that can also change everything if you're able to have conversation and it's effective.
Because that's honestly sometimes, it's not just, even in technical fields,
Mm-hmm.
like engineering, I hear this all the time. There's people who can do the stuff, and even if they're really, really, really good at the technical stuff, it doesn't matter if they can't talk to people.
Yeah.
Because everything, literally everything, every single field has some amount of talking to other people, and you need it. It's very, very important.
Well, as you climb the ladder.
That's
I mean,
true.
if you're an expert in your field and you publish in your field, you're more palatable. You have more opportunities. And that, I know I said that to you guys last year. It's important. The extraordinary takes a little extra.
Is that you? That's a really good one.
Yeah, that's good.
I mean, it just takes a little extra. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. I tell this to my kids all the time. My son Andrew, we're going through that. Like, I'm the 8th grade boy, and everything's come pretty easy to me. And he's about to get shook a little because he's going to go into high school, and he does very well academically, and he's in, the upper echelon classes. And I'll say to him, listen, you better enjoy this ride because at some point, there's going to be a struggle.
That's where you have to rise to it, because I remember that exact same thing. Like, that stuff kind of came easy, I guess, to you too, I'm assuming. Yeah. And once you got to high school, it was like, hey, wake up. Like, this is not, you can't float through this stuff. You have to actually try. And like, the habits that I was able to learn just from what I personally, study habits, basically, like, I'm really good at seeing stuff on a page and like graphics and studying from like a piece of paper. And like, some people are good at like flashcards. Like, flashcards had never helped me. That's just like the way I am.
Yeah.
And like, learning that stuff then has been so helpful for doing stuff now and in the future, I'm assuming too, at college and stuff like that, because you don't have time to figure out what helps you. You just have to know, and you just have to do it.
Yeah.
And it was a little bit of a slap in the face, but sometimes it has to be.
Was that a 9th grade slap in the face?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe a little bit 8th grade too, because we came up to the high school for like the math class, and like that was the first high school class I ever took, and it was definitely different than what things were like at the middle school, for sure.
Yeah, the middle school, I remember distinctly because I just cruised.
Yeah.
Like, if I was driving a car, I just put it on cruise control at 60 and I just sat back and relaxed. I never had to put my foot on the gas. But when I got to high school, I know my work ethic changed a lot because I had to figure out how I wanted to be able to succeed. Because I always knew my time is very valuable to me. And if I'm going to be in a school for 8 hours, right, I'm taking all these classes, I'm going to make sure that I'm doing it the best I can. So I always knew inherently that I wanted to get good grades in my classes. It was just a matter of how.
How efficiently?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
How hard you're willing to work for it too.
So I had to bump up my work ethic.
Or maybe care.
Yeah, care, yeah.
Ask questions during class, right?
Yeah.
I'm always amazed at, any questions?
Silence.
And it's like silence, and I'm thinking, I know that in 2 seconds, someone's going to come back to my desk and say, like, just ask the question. But it's also, high school is such an epicenter of abnormal because you come together and you're like different. I mean, just so everyone's so unique and people find their stride sooner than later, and the level of different personalities. You would think, oh, high schoolers are relatively the same. They're not. They're not the same. And that's one of the beauties of being a teacher. It's one of the beauties of being a teacher because so many kids are at so many different stages in the game. And, I know Senora Ulf, she loves teaching seniors. And bless her, she does. But I love teaching juniors. I just, I look at seniors and I think, is your foot halfway out the door when the year starts? And she's captivating. Me, I look at it like, we got to get down to business and you got to get ready.
Yeah.
So she, it's just two different kind of mindsets. But philosophically, we're pretty much on the same field.
We gotta get somebody on the show who likes sophomores and freshmen.
Yeah.
Oh, I teach sophomores. I taught sophomores for years. I love them too.
Yeah.
And I love them too because they'll still play.
Mm.
Ninth grade, they're trying to figure it out. They're bouncing off the walls. 10th grade, they're like, I'll still play. And then juniors are going, I can't play.
Yeah.
And then you hit the senior year and you're like, I'm almost there.
Yeah.
Might not even show up to class today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so.
I would agree, though, that you and Mrs. Ulf do have similar philosophies,
Very.
but your teaching styles are different.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
It's interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting how that works. And that goes back to what you said earlier about how when you're a teacher, you have to have both the communication with people locked down, but you also have to be an expert in your content. And it's just every teacher's different with the way that those two things mesh. That's
Right.
pretty cool.
Right. I mean, if you look at Mrs. Canfield,
Yeah.
I mean, the woman's a goddess. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah.
In her area, there are just people in the building that, and I also think that in life people just gravitate towards, because I think people are scared of her, but she is up on this pedestal like they're paying, homage and there's an altar. Different people offer different things, and I always look at this when I'm looking, as a parent. I look at the teachers that my kids have had and have currently, and I think, thank goodness my kids have had an opportunity to meet different people, because when you get a job, you can't be like, I want this guy to be my boss because he seems to be, that doesn't work. They're like, listen, here's your cubicle. This is what you need to know. It's not like you can pick. I was wondering, can I work in this department because these guys have, Taco Tuesdays? Like, that doesn't work. You get placed where you get placed when you start.
Right.
And I think you need to be able to interact with different types of people. I think it's important. And you'll see that as you go to college. You'll have different professors. You'll have the guy that comes in with his briefcase. He will talk nonstop for 3 hours, and then he will get his briefcase, and he will be gone. And then you'll have someone who will say, I'll be around for the next half an hour, if ever. And then you'll have the person who's like, we're going to have a coffee shop tutorial. Like, you're going to have all levels. And then you'll have the TA, and you'll have all those things. It'll be fun and exciting.
I feel like for most kids, though, now, that skill of being able to interact face-to-face has been replaced by a phone.
Here's what I wonder, and I've been thinking about this too. Do you think it's as bad as you think it is, student to teacher, or is it worse, student to student?
What do you mean?
Like, do you think that more kids have a difficulty connecting with an adult, or do they have a greater difficulty connecting with their peers without the phone?
Right. Okay, I see. Yeah.
It really depends on the kid,
Mhm.
but if I were to generalize, I want to say that it's pretty intimidating to talk to an adult.
Okay.
especially if they're unlike anybody. They're unlike your parents, and they're unlike anybody you know really well. And also, I think it's pretty. For me, I'm trying to think about like somebody else, but I'm gonna be honest. For me, it's not intimidating to talk to another student, and usually not another teacher. But I want to say for a normal kid, yeah, it is pretty intimidating to talk to another student because let's just say I'm a new kid and I go to a new school on the first day. Yeah, I'm gonna be pretty lost.
Yeah, I would disagree with your original statement. You saying I would definitely say I'm more comfortable talking to adults than kids.
Really?
For sure, absolutely, yeah. I mean, I just feel like the adult kind of knows what's going on, and do you know what I mean? Like, I feel a little bit more comfortable talking to them, and I feel like if I mess up or something or do something dumb, like they'll just kind of breeze over. Where a kid's gonna
I feel the
think
opposite.
it's funny, really.
I feel like an adult, if I mess up in front of an adult, they're gonna,
That's interesting because I don't ever hold on to those things.
Really?
No. And I think that's one of the most prominent misconceptions of teachers.
Huh.
I think that I remember one day I was walking in the hall and this girl said something along the lines of, "Oh, there's Mrs. Kocan, she hates me." And I looked at her and I went, I don't know who you are. And she said, "Don't you remember when I was in 9th grade, I slammed your door by accident?" And I went, "No, I don't. I don't know." And I think that's a misconception that I think, or I'll hear things like, "My teacher hates me." I don't think your teacher hates you. We don't sit around at night going, "Ha ha ha." Like, I just think, like, honestly, and I say this all the time, I can barely get my laundry done. I don't have time to worry about, this kid who did something stupid in the middle of the hallway and interrupted my class.
Yeah.
So I think that because you are the age that you are, I think you feel like you have a perpetual spotlight on you. And that's normal. It's normal for you to be egocentric because that's what adolescence is. I mean, your brain won't fully develop till you're 25. You're egocentric. With that egocentrism comes like, everyone's looking at me. Minutia becomes a mountain. But adults have been there. I mean, we've all been through this. I think that it's more difficult in the sense I see kids more now than before. I used to be able to say, "Let's group up here. Let's get together." And now I am very methodical about the way I group kids because there are students who I think that brings intense anxiety for them to look around and go, "Okay, I normally don't engage. I have to find someone and then I have to put myself out there." I'm not saying all of them, but I mean, it's kind of like, you see those old school when they pick dodgeball teams, and you're like,
Yeah.
"Please don't let me be last. Please don't." And then, so I always now, and I've been doing it this year intentionally. Okay, let's group you up so that kids don't feel. I mean, I couldn't imagine being anxious then trying to learn.
That's what Senior Rolf said. She said she had a professor. The one thing she took from the class was that everybody in your classroom needs to feel safe in order to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. They need to feel like you care. They need to feel like, "Oh, I'm important," even though I'm joking or like I might be sarcastic and joking around with you. You always need to make sure kids understand that you care, that they're important as people, that their learning is important to you, that they are important to the classroom environment. All of those things are important. Mm-hmm. You can't function, and you definitely cannot function in an English/language classroom without a feeling of security.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
Because then you won't get kids to participate, and then the whole meaning of the class just diminishes.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to have kids who don't want to participate regardless. And we all have struggles. Every single person. And it may not be, mountainous or momentous, but it's still, little struggles can cause big issues. I think that's one of the biggest things that need to be a takeaway, though. And I think that you have to kind of look at the situation and step back. I'm looking at Common App essays right now, and some of the things I've read, I would have never known. That's what I tell them. I said, listen, no one else will read this. It'll be you and me unless you want to share it. Because that's a fear, right? Oh, I don't want anyone to, no one else. I mean, if you decide to go with this topic, someone else will eventually read it. But, and so as I call kids back and I offer some feedback, I'll just, if I know that it's sensitive materials, I'll just jot down the info, and then that's it. I'll say take a read.
I feel like the whole thing with not sharing it and being in class and being anxious is like, I mean, for me honestly, like I get pretty anxious about spontaneous stuff more than anything. Like,
really?
Yeah, like I don't like having to like read in class and stuff like that, or like
Aloud,
yeah,
okay.
Something like that, or like
That's
getting put in a group with like random people that I don't really know. It's kind of nerve-wracking for me. Just because it's like a different environment or like something spontaneous you didn't prepare for.
Yeah.
But if it's like turning in an essay, like share that with whoever you want, because I've put time and effort into thinking about what I'm writing. It's just when I'm like just talking or like just reading spontaneously where I haven't thought about what I'm saying or doing, that it becomes like an anxious thing, because it's like I don't know if I'm gonna say something
when I get called on like popcorn reading and I get called on, like my breathing changed. Like, I'd be reading a sentence and then I'll be like, I'll get to the end of it and I'm like, and then I'll start reading again.
But that goes back to what you were saying earlier. You were saying that transition from student to teacher to student,
right.
And so I'm not saying it's for everyone, but that's an example I think of what he was thinking.
Yeah.
And we do a lot of the other thing I started doing a lot more this year too is I read to kids. 10 years ago, I would have been like, I'm not reading to them. They can read. But every study that I have read has said that it's better for you, even though you're almost ready to graduate.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me.
We did that in Lit not too long ago.
Yeah.
We read the chapter from The Lord of the Flies.
Yeah.
And it was nice to see, because I think the way she read it, I felt like I understood it better for some reason.
Well, you were reading it and hearing it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know what I can't pinpoint it.
Yeah, I feel like if you read by yourself, you get like the baseline of it because you're going fast and you're just reading the pages. And sometimes like I'll be reading a book and I'll be like, I just read that whole paragraph and I have no idea what's happening. Go back, reread it. Okay, I got it now. Keep moving.
Yeah.
And then if you're doing it out loud in class, you're thinking about, okay, let me look at every single word and make sure I don't say the wrong one.
Yeah.
Or add another word in there or something like that. But then whenever like she was reading it to us, I was like following along and I'm like, oh, I didn't even realize like that's what that was saying. Even though like I had read that same chapter like the night before. And I was like, I didn't even realize that's what that sentence was saying or that paragraph was saying.
Well, you have Creanie, both of you.
Yeah.
The woman's a rock star.
Yeah, she's a master of the content.
Oh, my
yeah.
master, please. I think she wrote the content. So, yes.
Yeah.
And she's got the best reading voice.
Oh, my God.
She does.
I mean, her reading voice, her kids are so lucky. Her children. Could you imagine her reading bedtime stories? She has... Her delivery is fantastic.
Yeah,
I have a lot of respect for Miss Creanie.
So what do you think about, kind of switching over to education in general now? Do you think that you see it trending in any way that it's not now, or do you want it to be trending any way that it's not now?
I can tell you what I don't want.
Okay.
I don't want the transaction mindset. The transaction mindset is, and it can be on many different levels. Okay, but I put in this time, I deserve an A, therefore I deserve to go to a Patriot League school. I put in this time, therefore I deserve whatever I deserve. The transaction is almost like I'm the clerk at the curriculum supermarket, and you're, not that you're paying for it, but you're paying for it with your time and energy, and that you're going to walk out with a super deal. I don't mean that in a negative sense. I think if you work hard and you're rewarded, that's the way it should go. The problem that I have is education, the learning experience has become transactionary. And that kind of bothers me because I think at the end of the day, there's got to be some intrinsic motivation beyond being career ready. Like being a learned individual. I want you to think about anyone who's ever had an impact on you. And those people that have an impact on you are wise.
Yeah.
That's always, always, always a factor. They are wise human beings, whether it's through experience, whether it's through book smarts, whether it's through, being self-taught, whatever it is, they are wise people. When I first started here, there were a couple of men who impacted me greatly in different ways. So Jack Hauser was an English teacher here for years. One of the best ever. He taught ninth grade. He was a basketball coach, and he was my mentor. And that first year that I was here, the things that he taught me weren't about English. They were about how you conduct yourself, how you carry yourself. And had he not been my mentor, I probably would have a slightly different vision of education. Another man by the name of John Walsh was a writing guru. I learned a lot from him. He used to run a class called Writing Workshop, and this is a true story. He had 6 sections of Writing Workshop each semester.
Wow.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say year.
Yeah.
No, so that's 12 sections
That's
of Writing
crazy.
Workshop. This man, unbelievable. And Brian King. Brian King taught in the social studies department. He passed away. And he taught me quite a bit too. But he taught me things about what your role is in the building. And so when I look back and I think about these very effective educators, what I recognize the most is that they were wise about a lot of stuff. Sometimes we pigeonhole so much. Like, why do I need this class? Why do I need that class? Well, the compulsory education is important for you as a whole. And sometimes, like, we have to step back and say, this isn't just about a transaction. Like, in classes, you would have to say, if you're looking back at your educational experience, something along the way has helped you to grow, or someone.
Right.
It's a transaction in the basis sense, but it's not like this overarching, well, she taught me this and I put this. Yeah, it all adds up, but it shouldn't be like so finite. That's the thing I don't like.
I remember last year you gave us a article to read about participation trophies, and that's exactly what I was just thinking about when you were talking. It's like, I put in my time and effort, I deserve something for it. And that's not the way it should be, because the way it should be is that you want the best reward, you want the reward, work for it. Be the best you can be the best person in the school, be the best in your class. Just work hard for it, and that stuff will come, and it'll come in even, greater amounts than if you just said, I want it because I put in time for it.
Do you think this spills over into relationships?
I don't know. I think that...
What's that look for?
No, it was like education or relationships.
No, I'm not talking about like love interests. I'm talking
Just
about
anyone.
friendships.
I mean, at least for me, I think that all the friends I have and stuff like that isn't because I want something from them. It's because I genuinely enjoy having them around. And actually, in a way, I guess it is that I want something from them. And it's like what they have to offer me in a way, and what we accomplish together that we don't accomplish apart from each other, I guess.
Like, there's a reason Josh and I do this podcast
Yeah,
together.
right.
Well, right, because there's an end game there.
She said endgame. Sorry.
There is an end game
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Because being connected is important.
Yeah.
But
It
I
is.
think that in your life, you've probably had people who have taken, and you look and you say, I can't really give all that much anymore.
See, that's what it is. I think that it's not that, everyone wants something from someone else in the relationship, but the thing is it a mutual transaction?
There you go.
That's what it is. Like, are you willing to, if they're going to stay with you through a hard patch and they're going to help you in any way they can, and you don't do the same for them, then that's you just taking and not giving. But if you feel compelled to do the same thing because of what they've done for you, I'd say that's true friendship, is that
you're right.
you're
Isn't there
stuck to that
a quote
person.
like that? Like, a real friend is the one who sticks by you in the hard times.
Something like
When
that,
the hard
yeah.
times come around.
Yeah, with you till the end of the line. something
Yeah,
like that,
I'm with you to the end of the line, pal.
But isn't that what education should be?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you give and you take, and the teacher gives and she takes,
Mm-hmm.
and all the teachers give and they take, and you give and you take, and that's what should make it work.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. If
Yeah.
you
That's
sit back,
That's
That's
a
a
really good
beautiful
point.
vision.
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, if you sit back and you just take, and you're not willing to give, it's a one-way street.
Yeah.
But if you actively participate and engage, even if you don't like it.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily, I mean, yes, it's transactionary, but it's not a one-way transaction.
You know, maybe the thing is that not only that you're taking and not giving, but maybe you don't have the opportunity to give in the way that you see fit, if that makes sense. Because there's, you know, going back to the relationship example, you know, there's not one cookie cutter way for you to console someone or like
Right.
help someone.
Right.
There's kids who would love to participate in different ways.
Yeah.
There's more than just raise your hand, turn in the homework,
Right.
that kind of thing. There's other stuff like, I don't know, going after talking to the teacher just about themselves. Like that's a way to give, and that can make you have a relationship with that teacher, which makes it easier to learn the material, I'd
Right.
say. So I don't know, maybe we just need more opportunities for the relationship between the student and the teacher to grow. We were talking about this morning actually
With Mr.
with
Leslie.
Mr. Lesney. Yeah, that's the most impactful teachers are the ones that you have a personal relationship with.
That's what.
And that's where you learn the most as well. All the teachers that I have a good close relationship with feel like I get more out of their class because of it.
But I think that you've also probably extended the arm. So, and I get what you're saying. Sometimes if it's a very didactic type of setting and it's only you can raise your hand to participate and I have to chalk it up on the Socratic seminar, I get that.
Right.
But I don't roll like that. Like
Yeah,
I make sure that there are different opportunities. So you're right, and I was being short-sighted maybe a little bit because not in all situations would you have those opportunities. So that makes
Right.
sense. I'm actually learning something today, kids.
that was a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And I just got done saying essentially something of the same ilk.
Yeah.
So,
No, I agree with you. Yeah, Mrs. Gearhart, when she came on, she said the exact same thing, that when she began teaching, she kept pushing the content. But she said she was more successful when she built a relationship first, because then the learning comes so much easier.
well, there's trust.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it is.
And it does go both ways. Believe it or not, it does go both ways. I think that sometimes people view teachers just as this authoritarian kind of being.
You sit down, I teach,
Yeah.
and you shall learn.
Yeah, the empty vessel, and all that kind of stuff. But I think there is some level of trust, because teachers who are also willing to give you a little bit of who they are, that doesn't come. I mean, if it comes on the first day, that's impressive. I mean, I know Mr. Bassos and I have been friends for as long as I've been here. He tells you his whole life story the first day. Because that's what he does. But I would say he is in the minority there. He's not necessarily.
Yeah.
But as far as like me, it just comes a little bit at a time. I don't just hit you, first day, like this is everything. I don't give you my resume on the first day. He does it in a very fun, a fun way. I would think if I would do it, people would be like, what's the deal with this woman?
No, you're right about Mr. Bastos. I had him freshman year, and I wasn't supposed to be in his class, but I took it because I wanted to learn about media. When I look back now, I have very fond memories about it. I remember being on a laptop editing video, and he would just be in the back at his desk just like this, just telling us stories, and it was a fun time. Yeah.
Well, storytelling's also an art.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
It is.
So, as a teacher, I guess this is just kind of came to me. Is there students that you would like go out of your way to like talk to or like go see? Because I know there's definitely teachers like that for me who like if I had like a free period or something and they were free, like I would like go in the room and like talk to them or something like that. Do you feel that way about students in some cases? Like there's students that you feel like you can gain from and have like a nice relationship with?
Yes. There's some level of reciprocity that has to happen, though.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's with any kind of, I'll use working relationship in this sense.
Right.
I think, I've learned a lot from quite a few kids over the years. But I think one of the best things that the students have done for me is they kind of have kept me in check. And I don't mean that in a negative way. Like, for instance, Nick Roberts. Nick Roberts had this gentle, like, je ne sais quoi about him.
Mhm.
He could say something, and it was never rude, but it was to the point. And he said something to me once. He went to Europe with us as well. And he said something to me, and I thought it kind of changed the paradigm. Because I think I can be much for people. But the intentions are always there.
Mhm.
You know, he said it took me a while to get it. And I remember he said something to me along the lines of, because I said to my son once, are we going to wallow in mediocrity, or what are we doing here? And he was like, Mrs. Kocan, he's like in 5th grade. And I didn't expect it to come from him. So it was actually like a life lesson, you know, in conjunction with how I address, you know. So
Interesting.
Know your audience.
Yeah.
knowing your audience is everything.
Yeah, that was the one thing I took away from language
Mm.
more than anything. Really, is know your audience.
But it's life.
Yeah,
There's nothing more important than knowing your audience.
Right. In any scenario.
Yes.
Yeah.
Knowing where the exits are and knowing your audience. For sure. Yes, I think so. And I think that's why I've been able to do this for as long as I've been able to do it for. I mean, yes, people have been here longer than me. But the beauty of it is, you know, the audience is always changing.
Mhm.
Every day. You know, every day. Kids are growing or struggling or whatever.
Right.
So it's very interesting. It's also interesting when I see kids out of here, outside of the building, and they see me, and it's kind of like you lock eyes, and they can't believe you're in the outdoors.
You're allowed outside your room.
Yeah, right. What? You're at the grocery store? I tell the kids all the time. At one time I had a group of girls was like filming me at the grocery store. Carolyn was little. So finally I caught up with one of them in like the frozen food aisle. I said, "What is happening?" They're like, "It's just fascinating." I said, "Well, we're not at the zoo. I'm not." I mean, so I think innately students are interested in their teachers.
Yeah, definitely.
I think when you spend 8 hours a day from childhood, you know, and teachers are always there for you, I think that just it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
And hopefully in high school, you can get the most out of that relationship.
Yeah, because that's when you can talk on a more intellectual level. I feel
Yeah.
like, you know, in middle school, I wouldn't say I had a lot of close relationship with teachers. It was
No.
really in high school when it started to kind of kick in, and I was able to, you know, kind of peg the traits that I like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think what would benefit, you know, you're doing this, and I think it's great. It's fantastic. But I think at the same time, you should advocate for kids connecting with their teachers.
Yeah.
You know, I think that people respect the two of you. I think they do. And I think that as a parting, I know that you're doing all of these things. You know, the podcasts are fantastic. But I think encouragement goes a long way. You know, you should talk to your teacher. You should connect with the upperclassmen. I think that's important because coming from an adult, I mean, let's be honest, you know, unless you reach out, you know, but I think at the same time, if they see it, if younger kids see it happening, they may be more inclined to connect.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. It's like the way I used to be as a kid. If I saw my brother doing something, I would want to do it too.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's a lot you can benefit from it. So, I mean, the earlier you can do that kind of thing,
Yeah.
I think the better. Because, like I said, you learn more
Yeah, sure.
if you have that kind of relationship. Yeah.
And for me, I think it definitely started in, I want to say 11th grade was
Yeah,
when
I
I
would agree with
really
that.
started talking to my teachers as, you know, people instead of just, and I used to have a transactional relationship with my teachers. Like, they knew me, and I guess I remember it always just being funny and lighthearted. but I never remember having a serious intellectual conversation like Josh said.
Yeah.
Like talking about a topic and really getting to know what they thought about it. That never happened until last year.
Well, I remember you guys popped in last year. We were talking about politics.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that.
And
Yeah.
it's always a slippery slope because, people have you pegged in one way and then you say something else and they're kind of like, what's happening here? But it always surprises me that people say, and I totally 100% disagree. They'll say, you never talk about politics with people. And I think you should.
Oh, I do too.
Because I had a very, very interesting conversation after Parkland, after the shootings at Parkland, with a friend of mine who was ex-military. And then we talked, and then I started to look at the media, and then I started to, and that's true education.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started to look at what was being presented and who was presenting it, because I've always told you that there's always a bias. And everything's persuasive. Everything's an argument. And I think that if you train people not to have an open mind, totally open, but to seek answers and to seek information,
Right.
then you will always be better off. So if we're having a conversation, we're having a conversation about the upcoming election, because we have to start right now. I would want to know what people think, unless their conversation is filled with hate.
Yeah.
I mean, if we can have an open conversation on why people, I think that's important.
Yeah.
I think, and we need to start doing those things again.
Yeah.
But most people won't even give someone the time of day if they're from a different party, and
Yeah.
learning everything from both sides is such a good way to do it, because normally you'll just grow up whatever political party your parents are or whatever you're exposed to or whatever, but you need to educate yourself and make your own decision on that kind of thing. And not only that, but be open to other people's opinions on that stuff and learn from them too, because having a civilized discussion, everyone always says like, oh, why can't we just have civilized discussion? But no one does it. This is like, it doesn't, you can say it all you want if you don't do anything about it.
Yeah.
It doesn't make a difference. If that happens on a low level, it'll make its way up to a higher one.
But I think agreeing to disagree is not conceding. Agreeing to disagree is saying, I hear you. You're important to me.
Yeah.
And that's what I think that's, again, it's about making connections. Every election cannot be about one issue. And there are a lot of people that it comes down to one issue. Well, it's this issue. And regardless of what it is, it has to be bigger than that. I mean, look at Congress. They can't even talk.
Yeah.
I mean, we need to do better. And so that's language. That's communication.
Yeah.
That's what it boils down to.
Yeah.
If everybody in the United States took your class, I think I think it's reasonable to assume the country would be, a more civilized place.
Well, I mean, I don't know how civilized, but
I mean,
no.
ideally, if you think everybody took something away from your class, yeah. But
Yeah.
I mean, but you can't control it. It's funny because I get probably an email a month. Kid who graduates. I didn't realize how important that class was until now. I'm, somewhere in my college career. I didn't realize it. Or you'll get the, I read this. Never thought I would ever have to see that piece of literature again. Those kinds of things. And that's all good stuff. It's all good. I mean, I went out to dinner a couple of months ago. Last month, former student. I do that stuff on a regular basis. It's good to continue with those connections, for sure.
Isn't that the dream of a teacher, though? To see that you make an impact that's that large, that they come back in college?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Mrs. Wolf and I were going to do a meet and greet like a Panera or something last year. Because, because at the end of the year, you know how it is. Everybody's coming back from college and they want to visit you the last week. And you go, first of all, we have a lot of stuff going on here.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks the end of the school year is like just kick your heels back. No, it's like do or die time.
Right.
And everyone was like, "Well, can we come in?" No, because I can't. I have stuff there is a deadline. No, maybe in the summer. There are quite a few people that I still connect with on a pretty regular basis. And I know I always tell this story. I had 2 students who got married who were in my class, and at their wedding, they held up a sign that said, "Thank you, Mrs. Kocan," and they sent me the picture.
Yeah.
I mean, that's cool stuff.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
cool.
that is pretty cool.
That is what dreams are made of, right there.
Yeah.
No joke. I'm very fortunate. I have had 19 great years, and this is a great place to teach. For the most part, the kids here are kind, and they're motivated, and they care. And that doesn't happen everywhere.
Yeah, I think we're very fortunate and we don't even realize
Oh, yeah.
that the bubble, you know,
Yeah.
we talked about this before. But yeah, definitely. We don't realize what you have until you see something else or it's gone.
Right, and it'll teach you as you move forward, too, to recognize things. I'm always amazed at how wonderful the students here are with special needs kids. I mean, fantastic. Stuff that happens here does not happen in a lot of places. Real connections with kids. It makes you want to cry because that does not happen everywhere.
Yeah.
Including people, and that's important. It is. People are important.
I don't want this conversation to end.
Yeah.
Trying
to find
I've said that in like literally every episode. There's like at one point I say that.
Yeah.
Well, I think
I have one.
I think that people don't understand. They don't understand either. Kids don't. You're trying to figure out who you are. Let alone, what can I take from this? And I don't mean to use the word take. What can I pull and use from this individual that will be impactful and intentional in my life?
Right.
Like, not too many 15-year-olds are walking around thinking that.
Right.
I mean, as you guys kind of move through the next couple of weeks, you're going to have a multitude of feelings.
It's already hitting.
Yeah.
Like, we were talking to Mr. Lesden about this podcast, and he told us as we were walking out, which I thought was a little bit symbolic, he's like, don't graduate too early. He's like, you're going to be in my position, how many ever years down the line, and you're going to be nostalgic about this time. Don't waste it.
I remember when I was the commencement speaker in 2014, and I didn't necessarily write a speech. I had bulleted points I wrote down. I didn't feel that I needed to write down a speech.
No need to flex, Mrs. Kocan.
Yeah, really.
Wow. You just went in front of thousands of people with bullet points. Oh, good to be you.
Can kids turn that in for your essays? Is that what you're saying?
No, I didn't. There were a couple of reasons. I didn't mean for that to come across the way that it did.
We understood it.
I still-
Not a big deal, just bullet points.
But I remember, and it was just one of the weirdest events in a wonderful way. Everything was fantastic. It was super wonderful. I mean, I looked out, all these happy families. The people had fat heads of their kids. I mean, the front lawn, the lawn was all filled. Everything was filled. And I just thought, what a great day for these kids. I'm so excited for them. And then they announced me. And I stood up and I looked out and the whole class stood up. And that was it. I went, I was super confident with what I was going to talk about. And I had my card. And when I got up and I looked, I just thought, this is crazy. But then I thought, every kid's feeling that way right now. Every kid's feeling, I'm getting up, I'm walking in front of all of these people who are here to celebrate our accomplishments, my accomplishment. That is such a powerful feeling. I got a little choked up and I thought, my goodness, get it together fast, because you've got literally 15 steps till you're on the stage. But I thought, how amazing. Because I remember my high school graduation, my college graduations, all that kind of stuff. But that's the first big one.
Yeah.
and getting up and moving and maneuvering through, take every second of that to just sit back and go, this is so cool. I mean, graduation's for your parents, let's be honest. But it's for you too. And the boy who was the chosen speaker, he won. His name was Clayton Wunderlich. And coming back to my bulleted points, his speech, he killed it.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked about less. Because I thought, this isn't about me. Yeah, you're selected. That's awesome. But this isn't my time to pontificate.
Mm-hmm.
This is their time. So I shaved a couple of the bullet points off. It was still a great night. But you have to just stop and take a look. But the only quote that I used was Lao Tzu. If you want to be happy, just be. Just be. Like, if you want to be, just be. And you have to just be sometimes. So when you're walking through that, you'll have people who are goofing around and, undoubtedly there'll be a girl who will trip because she wore spiky heels or whatever. But stop when you are getting ready to walk out on that, like down the ramp, and just look out and think, these people are here celebrating me. That's crazy. That is crazy.
Yeah.
But it's awesome.
I didn't think about that.
Crazy awesome.
Crazy awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, at least now I know what to expect. My brother would not have told me that.
Oh, Natish, I mean, he's Natish, he used to make me laugh so hard just because he smiled. Because he has that little, like, have you ever met Natish?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah, Josh spent time with him, yeah.
He cracked me up all the time. But just
you're right.
take that second, you know what I mean? And go, wow, this is a pretty cool thing.
That's why I never understood why people are always like, oh man, I can't wait to leave this place. Like my 4 years at this high school have been fantastic.
Yeah.
Like, I've loved
Yeah.
every second of being here. I honestly think it's probably one of the best schools in the nation.
I can say from my experience, I feel the same
absolutely.
way.
Like,
I mean, there's been ups and downs.
Sure,
There's
yeah.
been, like, middle school, I've said before, has just been, straight
yes.
positive. But when you get to high school, there's bumps in the road.
Right.
But I still agree, I would say it's been a delightful and enlightening experience.
But do you know why? You can either live life or life can happen to you.
Mm.
You can either be a champion of who you are or a victim. And while circumstances are different for different kids, if you are actively and intentionally living the life that you want to live as much as you can, you're going to enjoy it. If you are a perpetual victim of your own life because the boy doesn't like me, the teacher, the class is too hard, instead of looking at it like, I didn't know geometry before now. And yeah, I may not use it again, but these are skills I can use. And yes, the boy doesn't like me, but I have wonderful friends. Like, you have to look at how you're living your life. I was diagnosed with cancer when I was 19, and that shakes you because you think, I got to make every second count. You don't know, right? You don't know. And so if you take that active approach to being who you are supposed to be, instead of always saying, this isn't good enough, I'm not good enough, you'll never be happy. You can't expect for other people to make you feel how you want to feel. You can't ever expect it, ever in your whole life. Because you will always be disappointed. Always. Because you have a vision of what you want, even if it's not specific. You have a vision. And you are the only people who can make your vision happen. You can't expect someone else to do it. Not your mom, not your friends, not your president, not anybody.
It's really profound.
That's it. It's what life
simple.
is about.
Yeah, but yeah,
Is that
wow.
what you said in your commencement?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter what your mom wants because she's not living your life. And it doesn't matter. That's exactly what I said. I said, there are some rules to live in this life. And the first one is you have to be intentional. You have to be. So those kids who are like, I hate it, I can't wait to get out of here, they're not looking at it from the perspective of like, I'm going to empower myself to live. I know it sounds ridiculous, but to live my best life, because we hear it all the time. But there's a reason why everybody says it, because it's the truth.
Yeah.
You know, my mother told me a long time ago, and I'll never forget. She said, you know, there ain't no free lunch. And she didn't mean it from the perspective of like someone making you lunch or someone giving you money. She meant it from the perspective of, for everything that you want, there will have to be work. And that work isn't necessarily negative.
Yeah. And that's the balance right there. When you find what you're doing and you find what you love to do and the work feels like fun, then it's just a good time. It's not work.
Yeah. I think that idea of a work-life balance is pretty messed up because they should feed into each other.
It should be the same
It should
thing.
be cyclical.
Yeah.
Well, and the bottom line is there are not too many other professions where your purpose is paramount and contingent for other people.
Oh yeah, I didn't.
It's a lot of pressure.
Purpose, but here's the bottom line. Yes, having a fun life and whatnot is important, but having a purpose is more important. So I think that's the emotional payoff for teachers.
Yeah, because you'll feel an inner fulfillment that any sort of happiness you can get from anything else can provide.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, purpose is important. People miss that along the way. You have to have purpose, even if it's small. There's got to be some purpose there.
But yeah, that really, my favorite essay last year wasn't the Common App one. It was the one about the self identity, where we had three. There was a commencement speech from Anna Quinlan, and then there was 2 quotes that you had to pick one. I forget exactly what they were.
Oh, I still have them.
You still assign it this year?
No.
You don't?
I took a year off.
Oh.
You know that essay wasn't for me.
I just realized, yeah.
That essay was never for me.
That actually makes a lot more sense. No,
of course it does.
Hindsight's 20/20.
Yeah.
That essay was never for me.
I wish I was, that makes me think, I wish I was a lot more thinking in terms of big picture when I was younger.
Well, you couldn't.
Yeah. I guess that's the growth, huh?
Absolutely.
I think that the inevitable leaving here as a senior, most people have taken it as I can do whatever I want this year. But I think that I'm kind of speaking for you here as well, but I've taken it more as this is a chance for me to take a second and slow down. And before I go out into this new world that I've never experienced anything like, look at yourself and like, who are you, and what do you think is important?
Bert came in at the beginning of the year with a couple of kids, and I had a conversation with him. And it reminded me when I was going to the restaurant, I was coming back, and they were all standing there. You are very fortunate because your friend group, you've got a lot of good kids who care.
Yeah.
And so not everyone can say that because, again, relationships are weird, And I mean this relationship, friendship, rapport, whatever. But if you think about it, when you look back and you think about the friends and the friends, because where you start and where you end are 2 different places. And so where you end and who you're with should be meaningful. And so the people who are racing out of here, they might have their own reasons for racing out, right? But they might not have what you have. And that's a big part of it, too, I think. Like you folks have cultivated a group that you have fun, but you genuinely care about each other. And so not everyone can say that.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. You know, some kids are trying to figure out a myriad of things about themselves, and they don't have the emotional fortitude to cultivate relationships. Some people might have what you have, but it looks different. And so you looking at your experience is fortuitous in the sense that you have a good core structure that is built not upon convenience. It's not built upon convenience. It's built upon forging and solidifying friendships.
Right.
And that's important.
Yeah.
You brought up a pretty good point. I began high school in terms of my relationships. They were pretty, like, I call them, like, school friends.
Superficial.
Yeah, like, you come to school, you say hi, how you doing? You talk a little bit about a movie you saw or a video game you played, and then you leave school and you don't really talk to them or see them again. But I know that when I leave school, my best friend is you. And I think the one thing that you taught me, Josh, is that when we're inevitably separated, when we go to college, is that when I make new friends, I know what to look for.
That's right.
Wow.
I know who to look for because I can think back to you, and I know that you were my friend, and you're a real friend, man.
My guy. Wow. Yeah, that's very true. I thought the same exact thing. Yeah.
Take a moment. So essentially what I was saying, just so I can circumvent my tears, it doesn't always matter where you started. Good stuff.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people don't realize, like, I started here. Again, this goes back to, I think, the very first thing I said today. It's about the process. It's the process of the progress. And so, like, it doesn't matter where you started, but where you're ending is you have this core group of people, and it's about people. It's always about people. You always choose people over things. You always choose, I don't know. That's just the way I live my life.
Yeah.
And that's how I teach. So,
Good way to go about it.
I think.
Yeah.
It's worked so far.
Yeah. Past 19 years, it's worked out.
So, but I'm glad I got to be a part of this for sure. It seems like we had some good. I did a lot of talking, but we had good time, and it's meaningful to me because you two are important to me. So I appreciate the opportunity to have the conversation.
When I look back in my high school career, and when I think about the teachers I had, you'll be definitely near or at the top of the list.
Well, I don't have to be at the top. I mean, I have to. Sometimes you have to make room for other people.
No, you're at the top of my list. I don't know about him. I mean, he's just terrible.
Let's be honest. I'm not gonna remember, all the lessons I had, but like Maya Angelou said, I'm gonna remember how I feel, and I remember how I felt when I talked to you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Josh will remember too.
I think so
absolutely.
too. And that's what's important. I think that this is, had you started this earlier.
Yeah.
If you had, I don't think it would have been a good idea.
Yeah.
No.
Because you can't retrospectively analyze until you're near what would be considered a new beginning. It's an end or it's a new beginning, whichever way you want to look at it, depends on it. But you wouldn't be able to necessarily look back, and 4 years is a minute and a long time all in the same being.
Yeah.
And so for you to look back now, you're able to say those things to each other that probably maybe 6 months ago you may not have. And it's important. It's important.
Yeah.
It's really important. It's good stuff.
Takes me back to the Deathly Hollows.
Yeah.
The end isn't called the end, it's called a new beginning.
A new beginning, right. And it's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, it is.
All right.
I learned a lot today.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know how much you learned. Probably about yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. Some other things too, though, definitely.
I guess I look at things slightly differently than other people do. And we all do. I mean, clearly we're all
I mean,
unique.
that's the fun part about talking to people. We get to learn
Yeah.
from other people.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, one of the greatest things about life.
One of the most impactful conversations I had was hardly a conversation. I was like 22. I was working in the summer overnight at Giant Eagle in Cranberry. I was working in the pharmacy, like stocking and doing some other things because clearly I'm not a pharmacist. And this woman came in and there was like a seat. There were like 2 chairs. You know, when you go to a pharmacy, there are a couple chairs. And then the blood pressure cuff. And she sat down and I came out and I said, "Oh, can I help you?" She had this conversation with me. I don't remember any of it. I do not remember any of the words that were uttered except for 2 or 3. I have cancer. And she said to me, "Can you just sit here with me?" And we literally just sat there. She said a couple of things to me. I responded. And I don't remember any of it except for feeling that I was there for this woman when she needed someone the most. She had come to Giant Eagle. It was the middle of the night for something. I can't even remember what it was. Might have been a leave or something. But I thought, I didn't expect it. Because when you're 22, you don't even know what you're doing, barely. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah.
But I remember, and I don't ever know what happened to her. I just know that at that moment, I was there for someone who really needed me.
Yeah.
And there's something to be said for those things. So.
Just the company of another person.
Yeah. And not much even was talked about. She just said, "Can you sit?" I said, "Sure, why not?" So, again, being is important. But enjoy the last few weeks after you get through this AP testing stint. And I would encourage you to encourage maybe not all of your senior classmates, but maybe some underclassmen. I would encourage them to connect with teachers.
Yeah.
Because I think that what you have here is a nice thing. I'm not saying they need to take it up and continue it on, but I think, because that would be artificial.
Yeah.
But I think encouraging them to interact would be a good thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I think that's hopefully the point of this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Because if people listen to it and they realize, oh, the students are gone, but the teacher's still there, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to go talk to them. They seem so interesting.
Oh, I'm not that interesting.
I mean,
I'm
come
not.
on.
I mean, sat here and talked
yeah.
for like an hour and a half. So.
Yeah. We spent an
Yeah.
hour and a half.
Other than thank you.
Oh, you're
Yeah,
welcome.
thank you
Yeah.
so much.
You're welcome, for sure.
It's been great.
Yeah. This has been, revitalizing.
Good.
Yeah, definitely.
Good.
Good way to end a week.
Absolutely.
Oh, this was an amazing way to end this week.
Yeah. But I appreciate you selecting me. That was very kind of you.
Of
So.
course.
But I'm not going to let both of you leave without wishing you a really happy birthday.
I know. I was thinking, when is your birthday? It's coming up.
Tomorrow.
You're the
Tomorrow.
4th. I'm the 5th.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
happy birthday! I knew
And
it
to
was
you,
right.
yeah.
Thank you. I knew it was right around mine.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember
I
last
thought-
year too.
Yeah, I didn't know if Mr. Lacey's is the day after mine.
On Monday.
His birthday's on
Thank you
Monday.
for that nugget.
Yeah.
of information.
Yeah, his birthday's on Monday. It's interesting because my birthday yesterday was my mother's birthday. Tomorrow is my nephew's birthday. Sunday is my birthday. My godson's birthday is on Monday, and both of my boys are on Tuesday.
Wow.
And Mrs. Kabita and Mr. Campeji share a birthday with me. And then Mr. Lacey's the day after mine.
Wow. So
That's weird.
Senora, when we interviewed her, she always said that, she was very proud of her age. Every year is another year of growth.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel the same way?
Here's what I will tell you.
Yeah.
Right now, I will be 46 on Sunday. And all of the things I thought I knew and understood are reshaping. And it has to do with parenting. Because now I have a teenager and I'm teaching teenagers.
Yeah.
And so it is such a weird place to be in. And I know millions of other people have been there. But it is so interesting because my perspective has ultimately changed with each stage that my kids have been growing in and out of. Being a teacher definitely made me a better mother, for sure. But being a mother definitely made me a better teacher. It's this balance that just kind of exists because there's maternity on both ends of it. And so because there are such maternal kind of foundations in both of those things, in both of those roles, it's interesting to kind of sit back. I had a recent situation with my son where I couldn't figure out why he wasn't playing. He's an 8th grader on a 9th grade team, but the gamut of feelings that I went through is like nothing I can explain. I mean, I was everywhere, so much in my head, and I'm thinking, for the love, I'm 45. Like, this is a junior high baseball team, Tiffany. Let's back this train up a little bit. But it is all about perspective.
Yeah.
When you deal with I always say the parent-teacher conferences are a quarter about your performance and 3/4 about parenting. They are. And it's funny because I must have done something nice along the way, and there was a woman who was thanking me, and she started to cry a little bit, and there was a tissue box on the corner of the desk. The one parent walked out, and I guess she was blowing her nose and wiping her eye. This woman walks in, one of the mothers walks in, she said, "Why am I going to cry?" She said, why is she crying? I said, I think, so then she was scared. She said, is it? I said, no. I said, it was just, they had a death in the family earlier, and I guess she felt that I was kind to her son, and, she was very grateful, and, I mean, she was still reeling from it, but it was so funny, because just with the placement of the tissue box, it was straight out of, like, Peanuts, where she has, like, the can, and, she's shaking it 5 cents for psychiatric help, But that is another thing about being a teacher, just forging relationships with parents. I have very good working relationships with parents, and for the most part, the parents in this community are very supportive. So we're very lucky in that regard.
Yeah.
But it was just, she goes, "Why is she crying?" I went, no, come on, it's okay. Come sit down. It's all going to work out,
Yeah.
But parents worry about their kids all the time.
Mm.
And so you also worry about your students. I mean, that's just what happens. If something's not right or you see something off.
Yeah.
So is there a difference in the way you understand where the parents are coming from now that you've had 3 kids versus in the beginning of your career?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But that's with anything. Understand what a high schooler goes through.
Yeah,
That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the chapters of the book.
Right.
That's just the chapters of the book.
you're about to go into your 18th chapter, man.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Anything fun?
He's taking me out to
I
dinner.
am taking this.
Where are you
man to
going?
dinner. Bees Bistro.
Oh!
Nice shout out. Yeah, let's
There
give a
we
nice
go.
shout out.
We
to
love
Bees.
bees.
Bistro.
That's
so
over.
good.
Yeah. Are you? What are you
Bridgeville,
getting?
PA. I always get spicy chicken hoagie or
That's so
yeah,
good.
chicken sandwich.
That's
but
so good.
yeah,
Yeah, we
Josh
like
knows.
we like
Yeah.
bees. Good pizza, good wings,
Yeah.
good salads.
Their wings.
Yeah.
Buonissimo, you know.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
That's
Yeah.
good stuff.
Yeah.
And then you guys have prom coming up. You have graduation coming up.
Mhm.
Yeah,
All
it's
good
coming
stuff.
Fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just like to give a shout out to Devin Milley for designing our logo. Devin,
Oh,
we all
Devin.
love you in this room. Thank you so much for it. It's the face of our podcast, and it wouldn't be a podcast without it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I'll have to make sure that I tell her thank you when I see it.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Peace.
Thank
Yeah,
you, Mrs.
thank you so
Kocan.
much.
Absolutely.